Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Ananchenko. I'm a CTO and the co-founder at StellarSoft. Today, I'm joined by Philipp Mensch, a CEO at Luca Faloni, a premium menswear brand that has quietly been built one of the strongest DTC models, DTC plus retail hybrid models in the category. He spent years scaling growth and now oversees operations and tech. Philipp, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, as just to start warm and easy, um, you've been head of growth, now you are a CEO. How did your perspective on the business change with the shift?
Yeah, obviously now head of growth, that was when I started during COVID or together with COVID basically. And obviously all the gears shifted towards online. It was very important to scale up this channel extremely fast. At that point in time, we did have 4 retail stores that obviously were shut down. So we shifted full focus on online, grew online throughout the period, but also afterwards. We continued on that. Then obviously with the shift, at some point, and as in every business, right, also the whole operational backbone, you need to, if you grow fast, usually what happens is that the operational backbone lags a bit behind, which is quite normal. So that we shifted a bit the focus also on that, right? To give this more priority to enable then or to continue to be able to grow. So that's a bit the perspective got, I would say, a little bit broader, away from pure focus on growing top line. Also, obviously, to introducing processes, setting up basically the company for future scalability.
Cool. Can you recall or remember or highlight any of the main focus areas during your transition period? Like what was the main issue that you were trying to resolve?
Yeah, look, when you grow fast, right? Initially, we ran on Shopify, right, which was a great platform and it still is. But at that point in time, we grew a lot internationally online. We operate our own warehousing, shipping. I mean, shipping not. We have a partner, obviously, but we operate our own warehousing. And then at some point in time, our setup got a bit too complex to be handled like with this old way with Shopify. So we needed to change the whole tech, which obviously, yes, we changed the whole tech stack on the front end, consumer facing, but we also introduced an ERP. We introduced a proper warehouse management system. So all of that obviously, requires more focus, more process orientation, more detail to the process, because all those manual workarounds that you could easily introduce or had before, they obviously don't work and don't scale anymore at some point, right? Neither they scale operationally because it's just getting too big, nor they scale with the tech, right? You don't want to build your tech on workarounds. You want to build your tech on standard processes, which I think is very important to scale further and then to benefit from the solutions that you get. And that obviously was one of the big, I would say, changes that the company underwent over the last few years.
Okay. What was the most challenging in this transition?
I mean, look, we came obviously as a pure D2C player, right? You can do a lot of things for a very long time that work very well, but then at some point it hits, right? So you can have the barcodes you ever want, right? You don't need EN barcodes as an example. Now we obviously introduced EN barcodes to have everything set up properly. If you use a manual setup, you don't need to have again, right, your warehousing, shelving, etc. You can do whatever you want. If you introduce a warehouse management system, everything needs to be properly set up. Yeah, there's all these little details that add up. Obviously, they require some time and they require a lot of change management also on the operational side.
Okay, sounds good. We'll dive into a little more specifics down the line during this podcast. But another general question, just so we understand a little bit more about you, what does doing a good job actually mean for you today?
Look, a good job is obviously if the company prospers and grows, right, continues to grow, but also grows in a let's say in a sustainable and scalable way. I think that's very important. Just the pure growth for the sake of growth was never our goal, right? We are a privately owned company. The founder gave its name to the company, so I think he's very interested in a very long-term success of the whole brand. We're also focusing really on building a brand which is very delicate, right? It takes very long time to build a brand, and it takes very short time to destroy it.
Yeah.
And there has been plenty of examples in history. So everything you do it with you do it with this idea in mind that this needs to work in the long term, right? And that's I think is very important, and also it differs us from many fast-growing, let's say, e-com D2C brands, right? They want to grow, scale, and exit, which is a completely fair business model, right? But our case is in that sense just different, I would say. Not better or worse, but different. So the success is obviously, in the end, the customer needs to be happy with the product and the services they get. And I think that's the core focus. If the customer is happy, also the employees need to be happy, obviously, right? But if you have the happiest employees in the world, but the customers are not happy and don't buy your product, then that doesn't help. So the customer is really in the focus of what we do, right? And that's hence also this whole transition on the tech to offer the customer, a more localized experience, more relevant experience from what they want to see. Obviously combining online channel and all the retail stores that we have, that the experience is seamless. We are working very, very hard on, improving basically the customer experience. So if you make it easier for the customer and the customers are happy, also the employees are more motivated. If you then organize also let's say the backbone or the operational side very well, and you improve that at the same point in time with basically the same mindset, right? Needs to be efficient, effective. If the employees see a value, they will use it. They will use the tech. If they don't see a value, they will not use the tech. The same as if the customer sees a value in the product, they will buy the product, right? So that's, I think, is in that sense very similar. But obviously that's the most important thing, right? The customers and the employees.
Yeah, absolutely. They all have to be happy, and it's not about only one party, right? They have to both be in the same boat, like one happy end and the other happy ends. But at the same time, it cannot be that the customers are happy but the employees are not, and vice versa, right? Yeah,
because the customers would feel it, and vice versa, the employees would feel it, right? It's like if you work for a company or for a brand where you can't identify with as an employee, you're less motivated. The customers will feel it. If the customer's not happy, then so I think it needs to go very well hand in hand, right? And if the customer is satisfied with our services, with our products, with the experience he or she gets from us, then that will, then the growth comes as a result of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we are touching this kind of topic about the customer experience and where it can be. During our preparation call, you raised a very, very strong point where you said that there is a world where the website is no longer the primary shopping interface, especially for the brands, which like the apparel, etc. What signals are you watching that suggest this shift is real?
I mean, obviously, it's still online. It's still, for us, it's the main channel. We don't do marketplaces or anything, right? But the way customers inform themselves and basically make shopping decisions has shifted tremendously over the last year. Mostly also influenced by the big AI platforms, right? GPT, Gemini, Claude, etc. Discovery happens much more in those places in a very different way, right? Before you searched for a linen shirt, now you search for I need to go to a wedding. Which outfit would you recommend to look smart in Tuscany, right? Or I need 5 shirts for the office that are very durable, long lasting, and I always look sharp in them, and I can match with all the 5 colors of the trousers that I have. Yeah, so it gets much more conversational in a sense, and obviously that's a big shift especially I think for any retailer, right, to be honest, or for any brand, but in particular, obviously, if you're on the D2C side. Why is that? Because you don't rely on third parties to, that your product is accessible through other marketplaces, through retailers, to multi-brand retailers, etc. As we sell direct only, it's obviously very important for us that we are visible on those platforms, right? This is what the status now. Now, obviously, we saw that Shopify launched shopping on ChatGPT, shopping on Gemini, and what have you.
Yeah.
That may be the biggest. It may be the biggest shift in the industry that we've seen since Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
Or since Shopify came up and made basically selling direct,
Uh-huh.
available to small merchants and to everyone, right? Before it was very complicated to operate an own website, an own web shop. You needed to have like agency, everything was custom built, etc. Shopify made that basically accessible. They commoditized this, right, which was amazing. And then at the same point with, let's say cheap CPMs on Meta,
Mm-hmm.
that allowed a lot of brands to scale throughout the 2010s and then especially during COVID. But that may see a massive shift. On the one side, we see ever raising prices on the advertising platforms, right? So it gets more expensive to acquire for most of the brands. On the other side, we see a big shift in, number one, how people actually inform and make shopping decisions, and it could lead to a completely different space. Where do people buy, right? If people at some point buy on the LLMs or buy via the LLMs, agentic, right? That may be that they don't even visit your website anymore, or maybe only repeat customers visit your website as well. Now you have a very nice D2C page where you can, sell combinations, upsell, cross-sell. In our case, right, we can sell the whole outfit. But it may be that ChatGPT suggests you a linen shirt from Luca Faloni, a trouser from another brand, and then they check it from a third brand, right? So basically, it could be the biggest multi-brand retailer in the whole world, if you want, like not from how it operates, but from a customer perspective, right?
Uh-huh.
I get everything I want, and I get suggestions I want. It's a department store on steroids, if you want, right? That could be the case. But in the end, again, it's the consumer deciding whether they accept buying on those platforms or not. But you definitely need to be ready as a brand and as a retailer. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if AI agents become the front door, what stays valuable for the brands in your opinion?
I think then obviously, so first of all, how it's set up now, if the AI agent basically is the middleman buying, right? Number one, you still have a great opportunity to delight the customer with the whole, shipping, unboxing, packaging experience, because that will still come from you. That's a number one differentiator. It's obviously the product is very important, right?
Uh-huh.
If a person is happy with the experience and the product, it's very likely they will buy again. If they see it's a great product, I use it, I wear it all the time, I love it,
Uh-huh.
it's comfortable, it fits well, and so on. So, the main buying criteria in fashion is still quality, style, and fit. Yeah, and that will remain the case also if you buy via ChatGPT or not, right?
Uh-huh.
But I think what becomes very important for brand is then to go, you really need to build, as a brand, you need to operate much more. If you want, you need to really build a brand nowadays. I think
Uh-huh.
what doesn't work anymore is, you push in the long term. Again, I'm talking about the long term. Short term, that may work very well, right?
Uh-huh.
But in the long term, you need to create the baseline on the product experience side still needs to be perfect, right?
Uh-huh.
That's the prerequisite, and then on top of that, you build a brand, right? Because without the brand equity that you need to build, it will be, ideally, people go, if agentic becomes the front door, as you say, for shopping. It's like today, right? It's like it used to be in the US. I think 97%, or the statistics I saw, 97% of all the luxury product related searches contained a brand name. So let's say
Okay.
Coach handbag, Gucci handbag, right? Not
Yeah.
luxury handbag.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and this is if you have a strong, penetrated brand. Those brands have been around for a long time. They build a massive brand equity. They have the awareness. They need to keep the awareness. Obviously, they need to be on the right channels to reach the consumers, etc. But people will still search on ChatGPT for a Gucci handbag, let's say, right? Or for a Louis Vuitton handbag, or for a Hermes handbag. And then obviously you talk about, it's a different game, right?
Uh,
Then you talk more about, like, if you wanted the equivalent on Google branded shopping, right? Which
uh-huh.
is very different game than the generic shopping part on Google. And
Uh-huh.
that's why I think it's very, very important to build a brand that people recognize, know, and already know the values that a brand represents, and that needs to resonate with them. It's, again, the consumer deciding. But if the consumer doesn't know you, it's very difficult for the consumer
Yeah.
to decide for you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think, yeah, that whole upper funnel game becomes much more important than D2C, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, really the long-term brand building. You need to be where the customers buy. When the customers buy on Agentic, you need to be on Agentic, right?
Absolutely, but at the same time, you got to compete with all of those other like famous brands. Um, because like if anyone is searching for a Gucci bag on the LLM, they have likely already seen the bag on somebody else, right? So they already know what they are buying. It's just the size of the bag that they
Yes.
are willing to buy, right? But at the
Yes.
same time, if it's a not that well-known brand, yet it's a very like quality is there,
Yeah.
like the name is there, the price is good, and all of those like metrics basically fill your needs. But then at the same time, you have not heard of the brand, you will likely want to go to the physical store to give it a try and to
Yes.
see it. Yeah, right. So even if that brand is on the LLM, there is still a lot for them to work on brand wise, because this is what will eventually matter long term, right?
Yeah.
Because
Exactly. And that's also it's a good point that you mentioned, right? It's one of the reasons that also we have stores, right? Is because, still a lot of the apparel shopping happens offline, number one, right? The majority of apparel shopping is not online, it's offline. So people kind of like to touch, feel, try on. They like the experience, right? If you go to a store of us, you try the different things, you come with your partner, with your friends, you have a coffee or, a drink. It's just a great experience, which you can't replicate online. ChatGPT cannot offer you this, right? This
yeah,
one-to-one personal exchange, personal relationship with a good sales associate that proposes you great outfits and creates you a really delight when you go to the store, right? That
yeah,
ChatGPT can't. So it could also be that, and we play in the premium/luxury space, right? It could be that it will distinguish a lot. I think it's also already what's happening today, right? Like a lot of the online shopping happens for for products that you can buy anywhere basically, and you just need to refill them.
yeah.
Yeah, diapers is a great example. If you're a parent, you
Hmm.
regularly need diapers. It's the most convenient thing to order them online. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
for
then
sure.
if you want a nice cashmere jumper, if you want a great, in our case, or if you want a great, writing piece, when you talk about, a Mont Blanc as an example, it's nice to go to a store, being it a monobrand store or multi-brand retailer, where you have a great experience, you can see, you can test, you can touch, you can feel. I think this one is very difficult. This cannot be replaced online, right?
Hmm.
And then again, it's important. We touched upon this in the beginning. Omnichannel experience, right? And obviously, by adding agentic shopping, there is one more. There's one more experience part that you have to cover, right?
Sure.
From what you touched upon in the beginning, when you said yes, there is a lot of competition on the LLMs. Fully agree. There's also a lot of competition. Was also a lot of competition on Google, right?
Yeah,
And
the
and I,
same.
and I, and I think it's a great opportunity for a brand that is basically on top of it, to gain traction on an LLM. There could be the way like people search for a brand and then they look. Because often they will search and say, find me the cheapest, is there an outlet somewhere where I can buy this, etc., etc. And then
Right.
ChatGPT may say, look, there is a similar quality brand that has a more attractive price. We don't know yet how it will evolve, right? I
Yeah,
think it's very important. It will go. It can be huge. That's what I said. It can be dominant. So you need to be well prepared for it. Yeah. But
absolutely.
yeah, but having also a physical presence, obviously, helps also to gain awareness and reach, right? And also, let's say a brand with physical presence looks always a bit, in the eye of the consumer, tends to look a bit more established, than a pure online player, and that's an advantage we have, and we reach more consumers, we reach more potential fans of the brands that they can discover us. Some people come to the store, we see that, yeah, I saw you so many times on Instagram. Cool to have a store here. They never went to the website, right? They
Yeah,
just because they just don't shop online. They just don't, right? They consume on the social media, or they see a YouTube video on their TV or whatever it is, and then they go to the store the next time they're in New York or they're in London or in our case or in Milan. Yeah, and I think that's you obviously need to hold the balance, right? Because it's obviously requires investment and everything. But I think it's a great way to basically show more opportunities for the consumer to come, to have a touch point with your brand website, agentic, stores, whatever it could be,
So
really.
quite a few. There have to be quite a few customer journeys that
Yes.
you have for your customers to even like to find you, because it can be like ads, it can be physical stores, it can be LLMs, it can be like general Google search, etc., etc. And
Yes.
like to wrap it up on the LLM side of things. So during the conference I mentioned, I was on the conference in Abu Dhabi. It's called Shop Talk Lux, and there were quite a few brands like Hermes, Pandora, like big
Yeah.
brands that actually operate in the space of apparel and luxury goods. And then basically one of those topics, and like it was like everywhere, basically
Yeah.
across all of those brands, and they were all speaking about LLMs and the search results and how to optimize to be in the top 5 or in the top 10 of what Gemini or GPT suggests. So it's
Yes.
basically like it's already on top of the minds of that leading
Perfect.
brand. So
Yeah.
it's definitely recommended for anyone who is listening to look it up. One of the like very easy touch points is the company called SEMrush. Everyone knows it. I mean, the price is premium, but at the same time, they already know what they are doing. So basically, SEMrush previously has been known for as a platform that where you go and basically can look up some more insights about your Google search results information, and kind of like what's happening, where you gain traffic from, etc., etc. Right now, they have a separate standalone kind of like line of the business where they help brands and businesses to show up in the search results of the LLM. I mean, obviously, this is the easiest way. You can look for other solutions at affordable prices, but at the same time, just the point here is that a lot of the brands are already on top of it, and then like anyone who is in the same space has to monitor what's happening. And kind of like to wrap it up on the AI agentic side of things. First thing first, congratulations on the past year results. As far as I know, you now have 12 physical stores, right?
Yeah. We opened a few stores last year in two in North America, and one in London, which was
Mm-hmm.
a was a big year for us. Was obviously it's beautiful stores. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Yeah, Toronto, the second one in New York,
Yes.
London, and there was a pop-up in Dubai, as far as I remember. Luca
Yes.
mentioned this on his on his page.
Yes. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There we work with a partner, Altai Group, and. Yeah, London, we have now 4 stores. So I think in Europe, if you travel in Europe a little bit, it's not unlikely you find us either on the continent or in the UK. Paris, Milan, Zurich, Munich, or in London. And North America, I think we are. It's
Cool.
obviously a huge market, right? Everyone knows it. It's an important market, so we need to be there.
Cool. How does retail feedback influence digital decisions?
Look, we get that's the thing, right? Customers give feedback in store, and we ask proactively the store personnel to collect it. And sometimes it touches obviously also the online, where customers request things that we don't offer yet, or it's actually a good idea, right? Could be very often it's related to omnichannel, right? Obviously, look, I'd love to look up, let's say, if the item is available in store or not, right? That's a classic case. There's other things that customers come up with great ideas, or they say, "Look, I tried to look this up, but it took me a while to find it." Right? And then I need to make it easier for the customer to find on the website what they're supposed to find. Right? So I think yes, it's very important you collect, if you have this amazing customer touch point, consumer touch point from in the store, right, where you have time, and maybe sometimes it's very transactional, but sometimes people really take their time to try out things, so you can involve them in a discussion,
Mhm.
and you get super valuable feedback, right? Because that's exactly what you need to listen to your customer, what you want to improve your offerings.
Yeah, for sure. Is there like, can you remember any example of a signal that the physical store could give you that the analytics cannot?
So one of the things is obviously a very important information is how they found us.
Hmm.
We know now a lot of the signals are basically lost, right? But it's very important. Like, what is how did you find us? It's just I walked by the store, right? So we have a big amount of people who just never saw us because they
Hmm.
don't use Instagram, or they don't use YouTube, or they don't use they just don't use the internet for shopping, but they walk by a store, they like the windows, right? There's the other ones that I said, like, I saw you so many times on Instagram, and that feedback you get, you get it from the store, which normally, we have a post-purchase survey online, but that again is online, right? So online, I think we have obviously naturally, by the nature of the business, a better data quality, right? But we extend obviously our audience by having retail stores massively. So what is the difficult part? We know that digital ads drives store revenue and new customers into stores, but to measure that, is difficult, right? Because it's not measurable. Yeah, you can kind of feedback the hashed email, etc. to the platforms, but it's not extremely correct, right? Because they may use a different email and so on. And you lose so many signals. It's just it's like, I think it's a false position that you introduce, right?
Yeah.
So what we've started now is to do a pilot, where we basically, together with a tech partner, right, called Nexoya, where we say we attribute also retail sales, okay, with a regression attribution, okay, and this is the first time we learn how much actually digital ads, and based for digital ads, right, and how much do they drive in store, and that is very interesting because now it's the first time we can use those information and calibrate the online ads, and basically with a weekly refresh, right? In a very dynamic way, we can then optimize and see really the effect. So that's obviously, we try to do it on the digital, but the information you get from the store, from the person themselves, that's always like the most reliable one, right?
Yeah.
And I think, that's definitely a very valuable source of truth. What is very important is on the product side of things, right? Because we do a customer survey, which is super insightful, and we get great feedback.
Okay.
Critical feedback, but also positive feedback, right? Both. You can learn from it. But, people usually give feedback on things they bought, right? They rarely give feedback on things they did not buy.
Okay.
Right? If you, Jack, bought 10 shirts from us, and you never bought a trousers, you have 10 shirts, you like those shirts, you're very happy. But we don't know whether the trousers you just buy from another brand, because they fit perfectly, and it happens often with men. They have their trouser brand, they just don't buy anywhere else. Sometimes it may be that something on our trousers you just don't like, but you wouldn't tell this necessarily to us if we ask you for product feedback, right? The tendency will say, you give us feedback on the shirts. In store, if someone tries things, you see immediately, and then they don't buy, you know much better why they didn't buy. And that feedback is extremely valuable, right? To improve the services again and the products.
How do you attribute that to the digital account of that user? Do you ask for it, or is there any even relationship between the feedback that you've received offline to the account that they have online, if they have any?
Yeah, sometimes they do. Obviously, a lot of people buy omnichannel, right? But we don't add this information to the account yet. There's a project we're having that we add more information to the user's account.
Okay.
Especially on the, if you say, I prefer, the preferred size and things like that, right? I think is very important. But no, we don't do that yet. That's an internal thing, more on an aggregated level.
Okay, sounds good. I do want to get to the operations, but I'll leave it for the last bit. But then, very, very interesting point that you mentioned during the prep call was about the metrics and what you actually watch on the daily or weekly basis. And you mentioned that MER, marketing efficiency ratio, is more important for you than the return on the ad spend, aka ROAS.
Yes.
Right? Why does it matter to you?
Yeah, look, I think ROAS is always an in-platform number, right? You get a ROAS on Google, you get a ROAS on Meta, which, I think it's very important. The MER is basically the real number you get. That's your revenue divided by the spend, right? If you want, or vice versa, the percentage doesn't matter. It's the same thing. But if if you don't spend on Google and you only spend on brand terms, your ROAS is sky high, right?
Yeah.
If I only do branded search, my ROAS is sky high. Doesn't tell me anything, right? That for me is organic, because you search for the brand, you click on an ad instead of clicking on the first organic result. Intention is very high, right? On Meta, it can be very different. you do, especially then you do campaigns. They don't convert immediately, not on the 7-day window that Meta has, right? We have a premium/luxury product. Sometimes the buying cycle is longer, right? So the platform ROAS doesn't give you the full truth. Now, if you go in particular, if you introduce upper funnel tactics campaigns, right? Video view campaigns that optimize for the view, because you want to really increase the brand awareness. To look on the ROAS is 0 on those campaigns that you see on the platform, right? We see again with this thing that I mentioned before, right? With the regression attribution model, we see they have a fairly big impact, right? We also see this on the post-purchase survey. Where people say, I saw a YouTube video. Yeah, the ROAS on the YouTube is 0. Oh, yeah, small, let's say, right? So small that if you look at a pure ROAS number, you need to switch it off, right? But if you look, it's about scalability of the whole thing. How much do you want to scale? If you obviously only operate, let's say, bottom funnel campaigns, but again, if your ROAS is 3, what does it mean, right? Is it only existing customers that you reach? Then the ROAS of 3 is actually not very good. That's why I think the overall MER, or then we look in a second level on the acquisition MER, right? What is my MER really on the acquisition? I think that's the number that for us makes a lot of sense, right? Because then we really get an idea. Is the marketing mix that we use, is it completely off, or is it on the right track, right? And then obviously you go more granular then to optimize that number. But if you look at isolated in-platform ROASes, I think they give you some sort of truth. Yes, absolutely, right? But if you don't put them in the bigger picture, because today, there's times where someone saw an ad, clicked, buys. Customer journeys are more complicated and more longer. They go across platforms. In particular, they go across campaign types, across platforms, right? So I think it's very important not only to look at the in-platform ROAS of a campaign, but at least you need to look at the bigger picture. So for us, ROAS, MER and acquisition MER are the core KPIs there.
And thank you for the context. So you mentioned that you're doing constant A/B testing for you to optimize all these kind of like metrics, etc.
Yes.
How do you decide what's worth testing?
So we do. This is obviously talk about multiple things that you can test, right? One is the on website experience, right? We obviously want to make it improve it. That again, it's coexistence between make it easy for the customer to find what they want, right? The easier you make it, the more likely is it to buy, right? But are we missing information? Is there maybe too much information? Sometimes if you get a word wall of stuff, it's like, whoa, right? And it turns customers off. So I think here we really do rigorously, we in a very structured approach, okay, we don't test too many things at once. We basically test one after the next, and then we see is there an impact on the overall conversion, on the basket size, on the revenue per user in the end, right? And then the winners, we implement them, right? It's a very iterative approach, which I think is also, sometimes you do the big changes, right? But first of all, doing always big changes, in my view, is also customers know you. So if you every time they visit the website every 3 months and it looks completely different, it's maybe not the best experience. If you do incremental, obviously there's some things that are obvious, right? So you test a bigger change and then you implement it. But then you start gradually to improve it, right? And gradual improvements, they add up. Yeah. So that's on the website side of things. And then obviously A/B testing on ads, I think, is very important, right? To see, on the creative side, but also on the campaign type. These platforms, they change continuously. These algorithms adapt, obviously, right? And then sometimes a campaign tactic that you used before or an audience doesn't work anymore for whatever reason. Or a creative strategy that used to work extremely well doesn't work anymore, right? And I think there, like, continuously challenge your setup that you have is very important.
And for anyone who is listening, given that we are talking about this paid acquisition, and given that it's becoming harder and harder, can you give us some insights in terms of what still works and what doesn't in terms of paid ads?
I think first of all, that's very, very brand and offering specific. Right?
Okay.
I think you can't say this works and this doesn't work globally anymore. I mean, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yes, right? Now,
Well,
it depends so much in which segment you play, in which industry you play, which consumers you want to target. If you play in an industry that is highly competitive and runs basically on discounts, you need completely different tactics work than we are never on sale brand, right? So a lot of the things that we do for another brand that even has a similar price range, but that does Black Friday or seasonal sale, they need a completely different setup, right? So obviously, what is important is that your messaging. Again, then we can go back to the whole brand building part, right? If you want to build a long-term brand, it's important that you stay true to yourself, right? And you don't, for a short-term gain, you don't sacrifice the brand equity that you have built and that you want to continue to build, right? If you are more on a really, really fast-paced industry, where the brand is important but not as important. Yeah, a brand is always important. I always say product is king, brand is queen, or something like that. So I think brand is extremely important. But obviously, if you're it depends really. We play in a luxury space, so there obviously the brand equity needs to be protected extremely well. While if you play in a more, let's say, mass market space in a different industry, obviously it's different, right? It's very, very different. So I think, yes, things do work. Look, I mean, people Google a lot, huh? Don't underestimate it. Google is still growing on search queries. It's not only the LLM. So I think to be strong on Google is definitely a plus, and I think nowadays is a must, okay? Purely meta, I think like on the high level, purely meta still can work very well. But I think you're leaving opportunities on the table, right? For other brands, TikTok could be the channel, right? For us, it would be a very difficult channel because it's just a completely different play. I think what is really important for marketers to know is if you want to be successful on a channel, you need to play by the rules of a channel.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. You have one approach, even on the creative. You have one approach and you deploy it on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, TikTok. You do the same content. I'm pretty convinced that is not working.
Yeah.
Right? You really need to play by the rules of the channel. Yeah? TikTok is maybe more creator led, right? Or more funny video led.
Funny videos, and then the audience is different.
Exactly, the audience is very different. On YouTube, for example, you can be much more educational, much longer videos, right? That would work. The video then now, but also obviously there is then spillovers to the other one. Now on Meta, longer form videos work much better than they used to do because of the Reels. So that's what I mean. These platforms continuously change, so you really need to find what is the recipe that works for me. If you are a smaller brand and you play on too many platforms, you can do that. So you get the low hanging fruits. That's one approach. The other approach is you get a bit lost, right, and you lose focus. So you may focus on one platform a bit more. But that's a decision that the company needs to take.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like the point that you made about the website, that you are taking granular A/B tests instead of like doing major chunks at once. Like is the same approach to the ads, right? So you gotta take, like, you can run all of those, but at the same time, like if something's running better, like optimize it to the point that you are satisfied with it, and then move on with the next one. Because obviously, like during the growth stage, like you pretty much all of the brands experience the limited resources issue, right? And then with limited resources, you have to avoid local optimizations that do not move the business, right? So at the same, like the main idea is that you can make those local optimizations, but you're gonna pick the ones that really can move the business forward. If this A/B testing is gonna improve your conversion rates by, I don't know, like from 2% to 2.2%, at the same time, it's like what, 10% increase in the revenue, like at the same price, right? So you are paying the same $1 million a month for the ads, but yet you are making 10% more in revenue, which is a lot. And then this is what basically moves the business. And then the point that you're making is completely right, that, hey, I mean, like, do your A/B testing, but do not do everything at once. Like, you have to be focused. You have to find those local optimizations that are going to drive your business to the next level.
Yeah,
So
and
that's
I
the
think
point.
that's exactly a very, coming back on that, Jack, is I think is really crucial, right? It's needs to, and then it depends how you want to grow and where, but you need to basically focus on the things that are scalable, right? If there's a great small channel that is has it has obviously its justification, right? But if you know that channel will never bring me, for whatever reason, right, to then you need to ask yourself, is it worth investing time, money, effort into this? Or do I take that money, time, effort to test something on a bigger platform that is much more scalable? And that again depends on every brand. But I think, as what you said, focus is a key point, especially when you are growing, because yes, you lack resources everywhere, right? So that is definitely the case. Focus on what matters. Yeah.
Cool. What are the challenges that you're going to resolve in 2026? Or
Look,
at
I
least
think,
planning to resolve?
yeah, look, I think it's obviously you optimize on everything that you have, right? On the one side, we optimize the products. We launch a few new products throughout the year. That's what we usually do, and we continue on that. We improve what we have. If you talk about online channel, it's definitely improving the on-site experience furthermore, improving the omni-channel experience. But again, it's big focus is on AI, yeah, to get AI everywhere into the business, not only for the consumer but also obviously again on the back end to make the life for the employees better, to get better insights, to get better, to gain efficiency. I think it's one of the core. I think 2026, yeah, AI will be a core part everywhere for almost everyone. But that's extremely broad, right? So again, here you need to pick your battles. If you want to introduce it for everything, you will have probably nothing in the end. So it's again, pick your battles. Where do I see the biggest gains? If you think of a simple 2x2 matrix, effort to implement and benefit for the business, right? So if the effort to implement is low, and the effort for and the gain for the business is high, yeah, that's what you focus on in the first round, right? And then after that, step by step, you tackle the rest. But I think AI is a core part.
Do you think there are any areas that the brands over-invest in these days?
It's difficult to very difficult. A very good question. I think overinvestment. In retrospective, you always know when there's an overinvestment, right? It's very easy to tackle down why it was an overinvestment. If you're in such a disruptive time where we live now, and you invest in AI, okay, I don't think you do the wrong thing. What you need to do, the frequency of which you challenge the investments, I think needs to accelerate a lot, right? We saw that we evaluated. We don't have a chatbot live yet on the website, right? We evaluated one last year. That was fairly expensive, and the first test it didn't really work. Now I saw one yesterday that costs a fraction of it, and from like the demo I saw, it was on our live website, basically with their overlay. It was very good. Obviously, right now we need to evaluate better, but I think that it's so fast changing now as it has never been before. So when it comes to tech investments in particular, right? Sometimes with the very big investments, it may be beneficial to wait for a bit, okay? And definitely don't lock yourself in on a technology. I think that's very important because that changes so fast. Ideally, you can build that's what was the whole. That was before AI. We decided right before AI went through the roof, to change basically the whole tech architecture to have a basically if you want a microservices based API first setup that we can basically swap out solutions. Right? Because if you lock in yourself into one technology too much, too long, you build everything in that, and then the change gets very tough at some point, right? So that could be yes, that some companies, it's not, I wouldn't say they invest too much or anything, but if you lock yourself in too much, you may lose agility, right?
Yeah. How do you protect your focus, though, in a world of infinite tooling?
Yes, that's another one. If you have too many, it's a thing. Think of it, again, in this what we discussed before, what's the benefit of it for the business? Is it marginal? Yeah, maybe it's not worth getting the tool even if it's cheap, because it also distracts. It requires time to implement. You need to people need to use it, right? You need training. So really pick your battles well, and if you have something that is working very well, right? And there's a great AI tool coming. I mean, ask yourself, is it really needed? I need this, right? Or can I just, stupid example. Yes, can you now wipe code your payroll? You probably can, right? Is it worth doing it? No, but you're laughing. But is it worth wipe coding your payroll? No, you can rely on a provider that know what they are doing, right? It's not my core business, right? But in our case, should we think of a chatbot, basically a digital sales assistant on site for the people who visit the website? That's probably more beneficial in our case, right?
Indeed, yeah.
But I think that, again, you have limited resources. Again, it's not unlimited. You need to really see, where do I add the most value, again, to the consumer and to the company. And that, for me, these are the areas where you should invest, right? Just to, is there an, if I can wipe code something and get a massive efficiency gain for some backend tool, or a massive cost saving, yes, go for it. It's a massive cost saving that you can invest then to improve the customer experience or to improve the acquisition, That, yes, but if it's a small, again, if it's about the small gains, it's a bit the same. Like if you play on too many, if you advertise in too small countries, etc., and you put the same effort to advertise in, a small country, and then you put the same effort to the US, better put double down on the US, right? And it's the same with the tech, I think. Yeah, focus on your core tech that really makes the difference. And the rest, if you have a process that works and that is efficient, why changing it for the sake of? Because now there's an AI solution. It's like, and obviously, this is currently a big topic, right? And you see it on the markets. What happened to the SaaS stocks, right? It was not a good. It's not a good time for them. But we don't know where it will go. Maybe they will all be replaced. But I think they still have they know what they're doing. They know the processes they're doing. It will be a very, very exciting future on that one. They could be completely wiped out, or they could also move on AI and improve their services. And again, you rather take an out-of-the-box SaaS solution running on AI that works rather than building it yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
But you have to change quickly, right? So and adjust to the market status, if you will.
You need to be able to adjust very quickly when it's needed. Yes. That requires a lot of judgment, and that will also lead to wrong investments. If coming back on the original question. For me, if you don't do any wrong investments, maybe you didn't take enough risk, right? If you only do correct investments, for sure you are late into the game, right? Sometimes it's smarter to wait a bit, right? But again, here this can be the right or the wrong decision. There's no recipe for success, otherwise it wouldn't be so difficult, right?
Absolutely. If you had to remove 50% of your tools, dashboards, initiatives, tech, whatever, what tools will stay?
I mean, look.
It's like insights and recommendations.
Yeah, but it's difficult. You really need to analyze that properly. Can you replace 50% of your tech stack? It's probably possible, right? But again, it comes with a risk, right? And that risk needs to be well assessed. And you could have compliance risks, because if you rip out your POS in Italy, that is a POS that is compliant in Italy, right? And you build it yourself, or you get a different provider, you need to make sure it's compliant, which is not that straightforward, right? There's providers for that you can use, and so on and so on. But it as soon as you have like intertwined processes, right, that go across, let's say, coming naturally with integrations, omnichannel is. It's not that straightforward to swap it out. You can, right? And I think it's important to challenge continuously the tech stack that you have, and it's important to have a flexible tech stack to have the ability even to swap things out, right? But then if you ask someone to rip out 50% of the applications that they use, I mean, in big corporations it's definitely possible, right? I think smaller brands, they are, per default, given the lack of resources, they usually don't build too many unnecessary things, right? So I think it's a tougher task if you're a smaller brand than if you're a big corporation, right? big corporates, I think they have so many applications running, they can very well switch off things or replace them, right, or merge them. For a smaller brand, it's still possible, but it's rather, for me, it's rather replacing things that you use than completely cutting, right? So you have a tool that works, in an old school way. Now there's a completely new way of doing it. This is like 5 times more efficient. Then you should think of swapping.
Replacing. Yeah, replacing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or even combining two, right? Adding functionality or whatever you want. But I think, important is you continuously challenge, that you really stay on top of things and you don't fall behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And with this change in market and evolving markets, it's going to be a little more challenging because it still takes time for you to keep up with the pace of the market.
Absolutely. That's what I said. The frequency of change is so fast now that, it's very, very, it's much more difficult than previously. I mean,
But at the same time, it's still like success. Success will be measured by how involved you are these days.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
I fully agree.
Philip, the last one. When we speak at the end of 2026, what will make you say that the year was successful?
Look, I think obviously, if you operate in a business, it needs to grow in a sustainable way. That's what we said, right? You can grow if you just burn money like there's no tomorrow. That's fine. Anyone can grow, but can you really grow in a sustainable way that all the stakeholders are basically satisfied that you have, right? Customers in particular, employees, obviously, the company itself, and I think if that's the case, then we really, we are still at the, we're still on the things that we can influence. We're still innovative, right? We prove that we don't fall behind. We grow. Then I think it will be a good year. Yeah.
Cool.
That we continue. I think if once we stop challenging ourselves, if we have the right approach, that's the time when you shouldn't be happy. Right? I think it's a really continuous challenge of your, if you want, of your go-to-market, of your setup, of everything. You should continuously challenge if it's still the right way. And then if you see certain screws don't work anymore properly, then you act, right? It's obviously very important as a brand to stay true to yourself. That's what I said. So the core values you shouldn't touch. You can extend them, you can tweak them, you can adjust them, but the core values stay the core values. Right? Our core values, craftsmanship on the product side, right, is always very important. That we use great natural materials. We shouldn't change that. Then you can discuss, right? We introduced a jacket. There was a discussion then that you have that has a technical element in it. Yeah, but you need this, right? Then yes, you still stay true to yourself. And then the integrity part, right? That we work with the small producers and so on. These things in a sustainable way. We produce everything in Italy. This is the core value. You shouldn't
touch. You shouldn't. Yeah,
right? But what tech you use is I'm completely agnostic. Right, in the end. It needs to work to fulfill that purpose of the business.
Cool. Philipp, thank you so much. It was a very grounded and honest conversation. Lots of topics covered: culture, tech, agentic commerce, the future. Thank you for sharing your thoughts about how you think about the growth, how you think about commerce, the future of the commerce, how you think about tech behind it, how you think about tooling. Lots of good insights, great insights. Thank you for joining the show.
Thanks a lot, Jack, for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.